Secure the exact life you spent a decade bleeding for, the precise combination of status, companionship, and security you swore would finally switch off the relentless noise in your head. And within 48 hours, a creeping hollow boredom settles directly behind your ribs. That quiet devastation is the starkest proof we have of the brutal architecture running our lives. We like to tell ourselves that we are rational engines. We build sprawling civilizations, draft complex legal systems, and map the human genome. All of which gives us the flattering illusion that we are in the driver's seat. The terrifying reality is entirely different. Beneath the polished surface of our daily routines lies a raw, driving force of desires, instincts, and volition. This is humanity's will to life, and it is mostly a blind, selfish, insatiable beast that keeps us perpetually trapped in a cycle of suffering, conflict, exploitation, and profound self-deception. We operate under the delusion that our cravings have a final destination. We think that if we just get the promotion, secure the perfect partner, or buy the house, the hunger will stop. But the hunger is not a flaw in the system. The hunger is the system itself. To truly dissect this, we have to look at the will as a blind, insatiable suffering machine. Think of it as the fundamental thing in itself, lurking behind all reality. It operates almost as if it is a curse implanted directly into our neurochemistry. It is not rational, it is not purposeful. It is a blind, raging, endless striving that manifests in humans as unquenchable desires, relentless sexual urges, and an ever-expanding ego. Life, reduced to its core mechanics, is endless wanting without satisfaction. Look closely at the trajectory of any major triumph in your life. The moment you fulfill a deeply held ambition, the satisfaction is tragically momentary. It evaporates almost instantly, replaced entirely by boredom or immediately hijacked by a fresh set of cravings. Even sexual desire, which drives so much of human behavior and cultural production, operates as a nefarious trick of the species. It compels us to perpetuate the species, often leaving a strange, hollow disgust or detachment in its wake once the biological imperative is momentarily satisfied. The drive does not care about your happiness. It only cares about continuation. To escape this relentless cycle, humanity has devised a few desperate tactics. We seek aesthetic contemplation, using art as a way to achieve a temporary state of willlessness, a brief pause where we just observe rather than consume. We try compassion, attempting to see through the illusion of our separate, isolated selves to recognize the shared suffering in others. Or we look to ascetic denial, the path of the monk or the saint, attempting to renounce the will entirely by starving it of its demands. There is an entirely different lens through which to view this relentless drive, one that reframes this endless striving, not as a curse to be denied, but as the only game in town. This is the will to power. Instead of seeking escape, this framework suggests that the fundamental drive of all life is to expand, to overcome, to create, and to affirm itself. We are not actually seeking happiness or simple pleasure. Pleasure is too passive. We are bundles of an aggressive power drive. Consider the elite athlete who destroys their own physical body, enduring daily agony just to shave a fraction of a second off a world record. They are not pursuing comfort. They are manifesting the will to conquer. This perspective argues that concepts like democracy and passive morality often act to weaken this raw drive, reducing it into a state of resentment and forced equality. The ultimate goal under this brutal philosophy is to become the person who actively creates their own values, who looks at the eternal, chaotic recurrence of life and says yes to it, dancing with the chaos rather than hiding from it. In this framework, good and bad are not objective moral truths handed down from a cosmic authority. They are simply metrics of what increases the will's power and what diminishes it. When we pull this concept down into the dark basement of the human psyche, we encounter the will as something entirely unconscious. Here, the will operates as a tempest of primal drives: aggression, libido, the death drive. These instincts are in a constant violent battle with our ego, which tries to manage reality, and our superego, which enforces society's moral demands. Most of our behavior is driven by hidden motives that we furiously repress. Civilization itself requires this massive sublimation of our darkest urges. We have to channel our aggression into corporate competition and our libido into art or exercise just to keep society functioning. But this constant repression breeds a deep structural discontent. The unconscious mind views this societal constraint as a state of war. Every polite interaction, every suppressed flash of anger in traffic builds pressure. This explains the sudden inexplicable self-destruction of seemingly perfect people. A politician ruins their career over a reckless affair. A quiet, successful executive suddenly embezzles funds. Free will in these moments reveals itself as mostly an illusion. We are being driven by subterranean forces that demand expression, and every repressed action has a severe repercussion, often leading to a profound sense of nihilism when we realize we are barely in control. Grounding this even further into our biology, the will manifests through deeply selfish mating strategies and an endless hunger for status. Our desires did not evolve to make us happy. They evolved strictly for reproduction and survival. We see this play out in the ruthless, unspoken mathematics of human attraction. Men are biologically wired to prioritize youth, fertility, and physical beauty, while women often prioritize resources, status, and commitment. These are uncomfortable, deeply ingrained patterns. Some of the most destructive human behaviors, jealousy, infidelity, mate guarding, and even darker traits like narcissism, Machiavellianism and psychopathy are actually highly adaptive strategies in the brutal game of genetic survival. There is no blank slate, the human will is intricately wired, and it is often extraordinarily brutal. The corporate climber, who ruthlessly manipulates their colleagues to secure a promotion, is not an aberration of nature. They are acting out an ancient competitive script. They are a manifestation of the will prioritizing survival and dominance. Take this selfishness to its absolute philosophical limits, and you reach the egoistic will. This is the realm of pure self-interest, where the unique I is elevated above absolutely everything else. It requires a total rejection of all abstractions. Things like spirituality, morality, and humanity are viewed merely as linguistic traps designed to control you. In this state, the ego operates in a sort of God mode. Your will tells you that your life, your desires, and your energy are yours alone. Any demand that you sacrifice yourself for the sake of society or objective truth is viewed as a sophisticated form of slavery. The only valid social structures are temporary alliances, unions of egoists that exist strictly for as long as they serve your personal interests. The moment the alliance demands more than it provides, the egoist walks away without a shred of guilt. This leads directly into the political manifestation of the will, which is power-hungry selfishness on a grand scale. At our core, under the right pressures, humans can be deeply self-interested and wickedly calculative. Because the will seeks power and security above all else, those who wish to rule must adopt the traits of both the fox and the lion. They must appear virtuous, compassionate, and moral to placate the masses, but they must be entirely willing to lie, manipulate, and destroy when necessary. The ends entirely justify the means. This flavor of the will is ultimately driven by a profound, primal fear of death, and a desperate desire for glory. It is the belief that human nature is so volatile and self-serving that we require an absolute sovereign, a terrifying authority just to enforce basic peace and keep us from tearing each other apart for scraps. Yet amidst all this darkness, there is a fascinating plot twist in the history of human thought. What if the will is actually a controllable, virtue-aligned faculty? This changes everything. In this context, the will is the only thing in the universe that is truly, fully ours. The goal here is to align our internal drive with a rational, cosmic order through the rigorous application of virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Instead of being a slave to your cravings, you accept external circumstances with total indifference. Health, wealth, reputation, these are outside your control and should be treated without attachment. The true power lies in controlling your own judgments. You live simply, endure hardship without complaint, and actively reject violent passions. You govern the spirited, appetitive parts of your soul with cold, clear reason. An uncontrolled will inevitably leads to injustice and tyranny, both within the individual mind and within the state. Some traditions take this even further, arguing that the human will possesses innate goodness. They suggest we are born with the roots of compassion, shame, courtesy, and the sense of right and wrong already embedded in us. The will's job is to develop these nascent sprouts through careful cultivation, much like a gardener tending to fragile plants. A toxic environment characterized by war, greed, and trauma can corrupt these sprouts, but the underlying potential always remains. Even when the light of our better nature seems to wither rapidly under the pressure of modern life, it never entirely falls out of orbit. If you align with it, a profound internal balance is achieved. Desire itself is completely natural. The key is distinguishing between natural desires, the need for food, shelter, genuine friendships, and spiritual connection, and vain desires, like the exhausting pursuit of fame and luxury. The aligned will pursue simple pleasures and avoids unnecessary pain, accepting that death is inescapable. Going against the heavy biological curse of humanity requires an unflinching understanding of your own unconscious needs. You must learn how to navigate these dark waters without completely deadening your mind or becoming a slave to your impulses. The real question hovering over all of this is what happens at the very end. Will you meet death and be able to say you experience moments of genuine, unique encounters with your own soul entirely free from the endless, noisy distractions of the will? The truth of our existence is not reserved for some intellectual elite. It is the raw material for anyone genuinely seeking their own individuation. Send this episode to someone who needs to hear the truth today.